Come on. Could have been a skunk. Man wouldn't do that. This isn't a man. All right. Huge movie fanatic Nate stopping on by yet again for another Nate watching recording, aka fan commentary this time. Since it's October, thought it only made sense that I started my commentaries, fan commentaries of the first. I'll probably do the first three Halloween films this year. I don't think I'm going to go beyond that. So, looking to do the one that started it all. Halloween 1978 basically started the slasher craze of the late 70s, early 80s. And while I regard, this movie not as good as some of the movies that would come after that would kind of try to capitalize on the success of it, like films like Friday the 13th and stuff like that, we do have to give Halloween 1978 credit for starting the trend, which led to movies like Terror Train and movies that I would regard as better films like Terror Train and Friday the 13th, 1980. So thank you very much, Halloween, for starting that trend. I'm not saying, that Halloween 1978 isn't fun or good in its own right, but I worshipped it as like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, 14-year-old and stuff. But as I got older, it didn't help with the commentary, the Criterion Laserdisc commentary that came out in 1994. Like they were kind of admitting some of the things that are a little goofy about the movie themselves, ironically, some of which I didn't even realize or think about myself until I heard them say it themselves. But I guess with no further ado, we'll start the movie here. Basically, if this is the first one of these for you, the way I do this is to avoid any copyright issues. Obviously, you're not going to see or hear any of the movie on my end. You'll just hear me blabbing with a positively black screen. And what I do ask that people do if they're listening to this is sync it up to the movie on their end if they want, or perhaps the movie well enough to just we don't even need to sync it up. I try to do, obviously, if you listen to this and you know the movie well, you know where I am in the movie and stuff like that. And I do try to do certain dialogue or sounds and stuff to get people synced or keep people synced if they do choose to do that. But basically, with no further ado, let's get into it. I got my Blu-ray, my 35th anniversary Blu-ray I'm rocking here. So let me start it and we'll get into Halloween 1978. A Compass International Pictures release. Mustafa Akkad presents. Pumpkin fades in. Donald Pleasance in. John Carpenter's Halloween. So basically, this is John Carpenter's second, more or less, real movie, third movie, if you include the student project, which became an actual uh, theatrical release, probably on a not a huge, wide whatchamacallit scale by the name of Dark Star. I saw Dark Star when I was a kid and instantly fell in love with Dark Star. I really like Dark Star. And I'm not the biggest fan of Assault on Precinct 13, but it's fun for what it is. It's something that his third film, second real quote unquote real film, Halloween, is so confident. But as you'll find out, I'll be destroying some of the competencies throughout my fan commentary. So if you're a big, huge fan of this movie, you probably know a lot of these problems anyway, but I hate to ruin this movie for you, but I'm sure if you're a big, huge fan of this movie, you know these problems anyway. But anyway, obviously the music here is just beyond classic. And how cool is this opening credit sequence with the jack-o'-lantern glowing and the old, the way I first saw this when I was 11, 12-ish was the old, original media VHS tape, which of course was pan and scan. And you didn't exactly, because right now the pumpkin faded out and we just see kind of the what I always regarded as like Michael's head and a knife or something like that. That's kind of what the white mask with the knife. That's kind of what I always regarded it as. But on the pan and scan, it was hard to see that the whole knife was cut off, and it was just pan and scan days were just a drag. So we've got Halloween night, 1963, and I love the little kids chant that's going on here, and trick or treat, little rattle, rattle, rattle of cans or whatever. And right here, the ambient sound, and you can hear like an owl in the background is just awesome. I do love how John Carpenter starts this movie and does the incident that, starts the movie, and basically what's supposed to be, for all intents purposes, like an Orson Welles, you know, one take kind of a shot. It is in fact more than one take and cleverly blended. Even over 40 years later, I still think that the things they do to basically blend the takes together is pretty creative still, even over 40 years later. But here we've got Michael Myers' sister and her boyfriend here on Halloween night, 1963. They're about to go upstairs and have the world's shortest sex, which is something that I never really, when I watched this, I never really gave a second thought until the Criterion Laserdisc commentary in 1994. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Now that you mention it, it is very short sex, isn't it? But I guess teenagers, you know, do everything quickly. But very, very, very cool way to start this movie, and I do like. It's probably, a technical. They probably, if they could have had this knife stay in focus, they probably would have. But I actually always liked how this drawer and this knife stuff goes out of focus. I think it adds to it. In a perfect world, they probably would have liked to have that been in focus, but I actually think it kind of adds to the grittiness of the scene, by having it go out of focus. So as far as I know, this is still one long take, and the first cut's gonna be when Michael puts the mask on. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, so they had sex and he's getting dressed. I mean, are you kidding me? It's like under under a minute. It's like, what in the hell? Once again, it's something I never even thought of until it was mentioned in the commentary. That's how goofy I can be. It's like, yeah, that's some quick sex, but you're so concentrated on the point of view and grabbing the knife out of there that you're really not thinking that you're thinking about the fact that this is the world's quickest sex. But here, sometime here we hear like a clock, just so atmospheric. Okay, here's going to be the first cut as Deborah Hill in Michael Myers' little outfit here reaches down, cut. Here's the next actual shot of a sequence. It's supposed to be all take place in one shot. Now, this is Judith Meyers, I think, if memory served, and the chick they got to play her, I mean, she's got some bustage going on, and I never really gave it much thought when I was younger, but over the years, it's just like, it's too bad she couldn't have been one of the main female stars and, shown a little bit more what she has to offer here, which is rather plentiful, but maybe she was a horrible actress or something. And once again, I never thought anything of the Michael's point of view looking up at his own knife stabbing until John Carpenter mentioned it in the Criterion Laserdisc commentary. It's like, okay, we're gonna go up and watch your own hand stabbing. But I mean, if you're a psychotic killer killing your sister on Halloween night, 1963, and you're a young boy, maybe you would look up at your hand and watch it stabbing. So that's you can kind of explain that detail away. I think we missed another cut maybe before I went downstairs, but here we've got the reveal. How cool was it to play that whole scene going through the house and coming out the door and what was, more for all intents purposes supposed to be um one shot. I mean, that was just beyond cool. And then dollying out with having the reveal of the killer. of this girl is this little boy. At this time, I don't necessarily think we know it's the sister or the brother is the killer, but how cool is that beginning? And of course, the music, which we're not hearing on my channel for reasons that are understandable, is just beyond classic. October 30th, 1978. What did it say? Smiths Grove, Illinois. We've got a rainstorm here on October 30th, Halloween Eve. An optical lightning effect, which is done not with flashy lights on the spot, but done in post-production. Works really effectively, actually. A lot easier than having huge lightning lights out there on location along with the rain. There we got Donald Pleasance in his first ever appearance as Loomis, a role that very much like with Betsy Palmer and Mrs. Voorhees, this is probably among a lot of people, probably Donald Pleasance's most popular character he ever portrayed, or for many people, fans and genre fans and stuff. For me, even, obviously I consider this to be the Donald Pleasance role of all time. Not having seen too many of the stuff he's done in. I remember, I saw whatchamacallit as a kid and still like the movie Fantastic Voyage, and I think I saw a episode of Outer Limits with him in as well. It's not like, it's fun to see him in non Dr. Loomis roles, of course, but I guess the word around the grapevine is that his daughter liked the music John Carpenter did in Assault on Precinct 13, and that was a lot of the reason why Donald Pleasance took this part is how the story goes. So right here, they're just about to pick up Michael Myers and transfer him from one institution, I guess, to another institution, and Donald Pleasance does a great job here, just being kind of like the reluctant doctor. It's like, okay, damn it, I'll do this. I always thought as a kid that this was kind of scary to see these mental patients out in a rainstorm, just like standing around. It's just like, oh crap, that's the first tell that something's wrong, as we have gonna have another lightning flash there, which again I think works relatively well. This is where Loomis is like, uh-oh, he was afraid of something like this. I always didn't like that expression that woman did right there. She looked like she's like sucking her cheeks in or something. So here we've got, I don't know who plays Michael in that shot, if that's Nick Castle or a stunt double, but Michael climbing onto the roof of the station wagon here, grabbing the nurse who's smoking. Of course, John Carpenter, being a smoking enthusiast, got to have every one of the characters smoking. Of course, it was the 70s, it was a different era. Tommy Wallace, one of the editors, doing as much as he can with this scene of car going out of control. And once again, something I never noticed right there with the hand breaking the window until I heard the Criterion Laserdisc commentary in 1994 was there's a wrench attached to the arm to help break the fake, presumably fake car window. I don't know if they broke the real car window or what, but maybe it was fake, maybe it was real. But just like, it's funny how you don't notice the stuff and then you're told it's there, and then it's like now you can't unsee it. And like I say, I hope I'm not ruining it for any huge fans, but I would imagine fans know all about it. So already Michael has broken out of his mental asylum on Halloween Eve, and now we're seeing Haddonfield, leaves dropping, Halloween. And another thing that I'm kind of embarrassed to admit is another thing I didn't notice until I heard the 1994 Laserdisc, the Criterion Laserdisc commentary, is that these trees, I'm from the Midwest. I live in the Midwest, and on Halloween, the trees are completely dead, and I'm very, very embarrassed to admit that And I never until I heard the commentary, I never noticed necessarily that the leaves on all the trees are all green because the fake leaves that they put on the ground, my eyes are always kind of there. So, obviously, it's a huge problem when you're filming a movie that's supposed to be on the Midwest on Halloween with nothing but green leaves. That's one thing as I got older, I just don't understand about this movie is why they had to have it take place in the Midwest. Why not just like with Slumber Party Massacre or something, just have it take place where they shot it in Pasadena, California on Halloween. But I guess they wanted to have this Midwest small town thing about it. But that was totally, I think, just a complete mistake on their part. Um, I think that's for me, that's one of the just the no-brainer things of independent low budget movie making is there's a palm tree way down the street there in Illinois. One of the most obvious things in low budget independent movie making is, I don't even know how to put it in words. It's like if you're filming a movie in California, don't say it's some other place where the leaves would look completely different, and maybe as young filmmakers, they didn't know what the leaves look like on trees in Illinois on Halloween, I don't know, but in my opinion, it's one of the things about the first couple Halloween movies that's just a huge, huge oversight kind of a situation. So, during God, this movie's going by quick. During all my blabbing, we've been introduced to Laurie Strode. Laurie Strode's there's first appearance of Michael's silhouette side of his face. Laurie Strode character played by Jamie Lee Curtis. This is her first movie, if memory serves. I've actually seen her before. She did this movie in an episode of Quincy M.E. It's a really fun episode where Quincy and Danny from Danny's Restaurant take a CJ Jeep somewhere and on vacation, and the guy who plays Danny, they're doing some fishing. He gets a fish hook caught in his finger for real. Anyway, Jamie Lee Curtis is briefly appears in the dressing room of a clothing store in that episode of Quincy M.E. But I think this is supposed to be her first film role. So Michael came out and saw Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode walking away singing this song. I think that was just made up. I wish I had you all alone, just the two of us. God, this movie's going quickly. Now, so Dr. Sam Loomis here is bitching about the fact that, I don't know, security or whatever was so lax. How could Michael escape? And, you know, I'm surprised like, this guy's surprised he could drive a car and blah, 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 blah. And okay, so Loomis is on the case, Dr. Sam Loomis. If you didn't know, the character, Donald Pleasant's character in this movie is named after a character from the Alfred Hitchcock film by the name of Psycho. The boyfriend of the Janet Leigh's sister's character is Sam Loomis. So that's where the name Sam Loomis came from. Here's the young Jamie Lee Curtis student. I didn't notice for the longest time Michael standing behind the station wagon there. I always thought it was just the station wagon sitting there on the street, but Michael's standing behind the station wagon. I didn't notice for years and years and years that Michael was standing behind the station wagon, and the spiel here that the teacher's giving, I always thought you never see her. It's almost like a Peanuts cartoon, but the kind of she's talking about something kind of ominous. It's like fate never changes, and it's the tone of whoever's doing the teacher's voice here. I thought was dead on perfect for like the subject matter she's talking about, kind of an ominous situation. I'm seeing two thumbs up. Thank you very much for stopping by to support the stream. I understand the why you're probably maybe you'll come back and or come by and catch it later after the fact, as I don't see anyone here now. But thank you for stopping by to support the stream. We've got Tommy Doyle here being bullied by the bullies. He's gonna get you. 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 The boogeyman is coming. Leave me alone. He doesn't believe us. God, don't you know what happens on Halloween? Yeah, we get candy. Ooh, the boogeyman, the boogeyman, the boogeyman, the boogeyman, the boogeyman, clunk. There goes the pumpkin in half as the kid runs down the stairs. Nick Castle as the Shape, aka Michael Myers, in full. This is like the first. This is the biggest reveal so far. We don't see the mask yet, but in full, whatever coveralls, overalls situation here. Yeah, it's funny how when you sit down to do one of these and you're blabbing about stuff, the scenes just go by so quick. But I always took this scene to be kind of like, I don't know what they intended, but this kid here, Tommy Doyle, is kind of the age Michael was when he killed his sister. So I don't know if he sees himself kind of in Tommy Doyle. I don't think he's a threat to. I don't think Michael was ever a threat to Tommy Doyle because I kind of think he sees himself in Tommy, and perhaps he was bullied as well. So maybe there's a little sympathy here from Michael for Tommy Doyle. That's always the way I've kind of thought of this as, but that doesn't, that's just a little insight into me, how I always thought of this scene. Like, I don't think that Michael has any, you know, ill intent for Tommy. Otherwise, he could have easily killed him right there. Here again, you can see like California hills. I don't think there's really anything like that in Illinois. I mean, I don't know, but it looks like California more than Illinois to me. Once again, I can understand the small Midwestern town thing, but just do the small Californian town thing. It's like, Slumber Party Massacre. It's like it took place in California, it was filmed in California. Just embrace, in my opinion, embrace the area that you're filming in. Have it take place in California, but whatever. I'm sure a lot of you big fans know that this train here was something that was not intended, and the camera operator kind of just made it a part of the scene as he pans over a little bit to show the train. You can see Donald Pleasance when he's doing his dialogue in the phone booth that he's like, when he hears the train horn, he's like, reacts to it, but like a true whatever he is, great actor, he keeps on trucking on until he hears cut, and they ended up using the take in the movie, which is kind of cool. You know, you need a big budget to sync up that train. So we saw that basically, like a garage, a repair truck garage truck was sitting there, some clothes, Michael's, nut house clothes on the ground, and a thing of matches. Is it Rabbit and Red possibly? And then, although the character of Loomis, Donald Pleasant's character, doesn't see the dead body, we see the dead body in the weeds, all bloody. So that's the guy who was coming from or going to the garage in his overalls or whatever. One would think maybe he'd probably realistically put those on at work, maybe even leave them at work. So it's kind of goofy if he was driving to work in his overalls slash coveralls or whatever. But once again, one of the details of this movie that could be, potentially questioned. So here we've got the trio: Jamie Lee Curtis and PJ Souls and good golly, Miss Molly. I can't remember the chick in the middle's name right here. I always thought, even as 11, 12-year old, when I first saw this movie, that the chick in the middle's acting was just horrible. She was also in Assault on Precinct 13 and in The Fog as well. She'd go on to marry Tommy Lee Wallace for a while, and I think that would end up ending. But I always thought her character of I think Annie is really kind of one of the more annoying characters in the movie. I don't think so. I think he's cute. Speed kills. I said that late. I'm trying to sync up dialogue. Yeah, I can just although I can't hear anything right now, I can just hear the music. God, can he take a joke? Once again, look at all this greenery. Halloween in the Midwest is not gonna be quite this green. Once again, character smoking. 3 or 2 of these 3 girls smoke. We've got PJ Souls that smokes, and do we ever see Annie smoke? I can't remember. Yeah, when she picks up Laurie, well, they're both smoking a joint or whatever, they're sharing it. I don't know if the character of Annie smokes cigarettes, though, possibly not, at least in the movie. Here we've got a Steadicam, or at that time, Panaglide, I think, shot, and which is kind of fun. I don't think he had access to Steadicam in Assault on Precinct 13, so I can understand why he'd wanna utilize the hell out of it in this movie. I mean, this was, right at the beginning of the Panaglide/Steadicam era, but, you know, with the exception of all the leaves being completely green, they did find a relatively decent spot in, is it did they film this in Pasadena and is the places like that in California? I wanna say that's where it was filmed, but, this is pretty decent. I mean, I would imagine burbs in North America kinda just look like burbs really wherever you are, but with the exception of the green leaves, it does look like, you know, Midwest USA. Once again, there's Michael there, and he's looking for something so she doesn't see it. He disappears behind the shrub. I bet you some big time fan made a diorama of a shrub and Michael stand peering out from it. I'm surprised like NECA hasn't made like a diorama like that. That'd be really cool. But I think what I was saying is, all these leaves on the ground for me, they've always worked up until I heard the Criterion Laserdisc commentary. I'm like, Jesus, I was always looking at the leaves on the ground, but they're right. All the leaves on the trees are completely green. I think there's John Carpenter's smoke going through the shot. What sloppiness. Cigarette smoke. Might have even been Jamie Lee Curtis who commented on the leaves being too green in this movie for Midwest. Poor Laurie, scared another one away. So basically, I don't really need to probably talk too much about the characters in this movie, as most people listening to this probably know. But obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis, Laurie Strode character is kind of the nerd girl, the smart girl or whatever out of the 3 girls in this movie. She's the virginal character, and the other 2 girls are kind of more of the whatever, just quote unquote normal girls. I always hate that leaf in her hair. It bugs me every freaking time. Here we got, in a moment, I'll sync this up for you. Ah! Excuse me, Laurie. It's Halloween. I guess where everyone's entitled, everyone's a good scare. Okay, I screwed that line up. Charles Cyphers, it was in Assault on Precinct 13 as well, and is also being John Carpenter's next movie, The Fog. I don't know if he's in anything else that, John Carpenter did after The Fog. He was also in John Carpenter's TV movie that he made right before Halloween, Someone Is Watching Me or something like that as well. This is clearly a different day as it's all gray and overcast and the street and the sidewalks are all wet from rain. It's kind of one of the bummers about having to stick to a schedule and shoot regardless of weather. All of a sudden the roads are all wet. But if we are into the movie, that stuff really shouldn't matter. I always laughed at this even as an 11, 12-year-old when I first saw this. The kids trick or treating in broad daylight with their parents. It's like these are the pansy parents all have their kids trick or treat while it's still light out. It's just like I wouldn't even think anyone's necessarily giving out candy yet at frickin' 3 or 3:30 in the afternoon, but maybe that's what they did. Now here's a shot that's cool until look at Michael and the clotheslines. That's freaky until we see that he disappears while she's still looking at him. So in my opinion, that's a huge cinematic oversight, very much with like all the leaves that are green and on Halloween on in the Midwest. It's just one of the sloppy things about this movie that I didn't really necessarily pay attention to or consider when I first saw it as a 12-year-old, 13, 14, 15-year-old. It's just like it's really cool, like, the imagery of him standing in the clotheslines like that and stuff, but then we cut to her staring right at him, then we cut back to him and he's gone. It's like, ideally, you should have, like, maybe the phone ring, and have her do this stuff and then go back to the window and have him be gone, not him to have him disappear while she's still looking at him. I wonder if some fan on YouTube ever did, like, something like they could have done something funny, like a shot of him, like, being beamed out from the clotheslines, like Star Trek effect over it and put the sound effect in, like, have him get beamed away while she's looking at him. That might be funny. So, obviously, Annie is just God, this movie's going by fast. It's almost 30 minutes over. Annie just called and said that she's gonna pick her up at such and such a time. Here's Laurie Strode's room, pretty boring, 1978. Once again, the leaves on the ground just do work wonders, and just throwing them in the wind here, you know? I swear that I never noticed until the commentary that the leaves were all green on the trees. I can't remember if they make the effort in Halloween 2 with the leaves on the ground. I would imagine they do. But once again, Halloween 2, the original Halloween 2, once again, it's, obviously green leaves on the trees and stuff again. So I guess in that way it's it's, very, I can't think of the word when going from the first to the second. Oh, consistent. At least in that way, it's not, it's consistent from the first movie to the second, but it's not realistic to Midwest on October 31st. So we've got Annie picking up Laurie here with the pumpkin she's gonna bring to have Tommy Doyle carve. Yeah, I mean that's what I just would have done is just like, you know, if you're gonna film it in Pasadena, California, have it take place in Pasadena, California. You don't have to say it takes place in the Midwest. It's just stupid. It's like filming a movie in Antarctica and saying this is Florida. It's like, why not just have it take place where you're filming it? Because that's what it looks like. But Dr. Loomis has a BMW. I always liked this actor. I don't know who the hell he is. I would imagine he's in other stuff, but this guy who plays this funeral, graveyard guy or whatever, this is the only scene he's in the movie in the franchise with his big belly. And he's very natural and very believable, and I kinda would have liked to seen this guy more in the movie, honestly, maybe a bigger role or whatever, but I love the story he's talking about, some kind of murder in the small town, and we never get to hear the end of it. I think that's pretty fun writing. He goes into the garage, and he gets himself a hacksaw, and he goes back into the house, kisses his wife and his 2 children goodbye, and then he proceeds to where are we? I didn't this isn't in sync, I'm saying it after the fact. When I was a kid, we're seeing the hole in the ground there. When I was a kid, I always thought that was the coffin he had dug up, but it's actually, in fact, it looks like Donald Pleasance is doing a little hidden hand there, kinda creepy, but it is, in fact, just the hole for the gravestone. But when I was a kid, pan and scan, VHS media, home entertainment, I always thought that was the big you can't necessarily tell. There's nothing to compare it to. I always thought that hole was the coffin hole, and he dug up and took out the whole coffin, but it's just the gravestone, which would also indicate how, you know, otherworldly strong Michael Myers is. Like, he's not only insane and quiet, he's also muscular and, the insanity, strength of 10 men. So one thing I really loved from the very first time, I saw this movie and would go on to repeatedly watch it as a 12-year-old and stuff is the low-key way, like, right here in this scene that Michael Myers pulls up behind him in the station wagon and is following them, it's just kinda creepy to have him just back there. Um, the very subtle aspect of Michael Myers just lurking in the background in the first couple of films, I really, really loved as a 12-year-old. Having just discovered this movie and its sequel, kinda right on the cusp of being 11 and turning 12. Here's another one of the movie's huge, huge fuck ups. Now, if I'm incorrect, you can say so in the comments, but why the fuck or how the hell are you got look at it says open, come in or whatever on the door there. Open, come in. How does someone break into the hardware store during the day when they're open? So that's a little bit because the alarm's going off and everything like that. So the what's happening in this scene is they're responding to someone Michael Myers having broken into the hardware store in the middle of the day when there's an open sign on the door. So is it just me or does this not make sense at all? Michael took a rope, a Halloween mask, and a couple of knives, or Captain Kirk mask and rope and couple of knives. But he'll end up using them later on. And of course, you couldn't see the car on the far left there on the media pan and scan VHS version, but you could in fact see the car drive by him here on the media VHS version. Once again, I always thought that was cool how Michael just you know, happens to sneak by him almost as if, the the gods or whatever are on Michael's side to make Loomis look in the exact opposite direction. It's just like it's just really cool how Michael just slips by him like that. Now, this scene is, if you didn't know, is said to have been shot. They needed some extra footage to bridge from day to night. So this scene was basically just shot probably with maybe Dean Cundy and Deborah Hill in the backseat or something like that or whatever. But kind of, and this was kind of maybe just improvised dialogue and stuff. And I always thought this bit works well, and Ben Tramer and stuff, a character who will die horribly in the second film. And I don't think we ever see his face, which is kind of funny. But Laurie Strode's crush dies later on this very evening. So right here, you can see them doing an optical thing in this one shot here, where they kind of to bridge the gap between day and night as the cars drive on there, they're kind of making it darker. You can see it's kind of fading, so that way when they cut to dark, it's not as I don't know shocking. It kind of still is though. It's like you go from, this is a really must be really far away. You go from day and it's night when you get to the that's another thing about this movie that I'm not so sure about. Why they have to drive so far, but whatever. I don't want this to turn into a bitch fest, but I'd say the majority of the my issues or inconsistencies or problems I've probably already brought up. But if there's any more that happen, I'll be sure to bitch about them. So in 2010, I think it was, my dad and I made our way out to California, and I tried my damnedest to find these houses, but I must have had the wrong online information. I wasn't able to find these houses, but I tried to, just being a huge fan of the movie. I found Griffith Observatory. That was fun. I think that's about the only thing I found film locations. We didn't have a lot of time to drive around to look for all these film locations. Otherwise, I would have tried to find more, but whatever. Here is Annie and Lindsay Wallace, Michael lurking. Now, this is cool, and obviously the music here at the Myers house as the sheriff car pulls into frame. The music here is so like simple, but just it just goes with the scene just perfectly. I don't know if this is the first time in the movie. It very well might be the first time in the movie we hear this theme, the one that's just like ding ding dun dun, doom, 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 doom. I think it might be the first time we hear it. So in the Criterion 1994 Criterion Laserdisc commentary, I think Jamie Lee Curtis is the one who says that this is the way the house, the way the house appears in the rest of this movie is the way it really was when they filmed it. So they filmed all this stuff first, and then the last scene was the first scene with him killing his sister, and they all had to like fix the house up to make it look as actual, a house that was being lived in as possible. We're just the stuff that was going to be on camera, of course, but this is what the house really looked like at the time. I want to say this house has since been moved or something and turned into some kind of something like very much like the original Texas Chainsaw House. I'm pretty sure this house has been moved and turned into something. I don't know. I remember, I think it was on YouTube or something years ago, some huge super fan actually built a replica, I think, of this house. I think, to live in, which is really cool. If I could, I'd build a replica of Camp Crystal Lake from the first film and live there. But that probably will never happen. A complete replica of Camp Nobi Bosco from, you know, late 1979. The fake or the cheesy jump scare there. This is just so dark in their original media VHS version, pan and scan. And being such a low budget movie, I can't hear the movie now, of course, but I can, as I'm watching the scene, I can remember that even though there's music going on over here, you can hear like it being a low budget movie, you can hear like loud vehicles in the distance driving around and stuff. It's kind of annoying, but it's not something I really noticed until I started watching it on better speakers. You can't really hear it if you're just watching it on TV speakers. Look at how great that shot of Donald Pleasance is with that side light on his head and the light on the other side of his face. And when he looks at Brackett there, look at the sparkles in his each eye there. This is where he's doing. I think this is the very first, you know, spooky story of Michael that he tells in the movie, I think. And of course, you know, these Loomis stories would go on to be something that he does in the second film as well with Sheriff Brackett is replaced by a younger kind of deputy guy because Brackett finds out that his daughter has been killed, so he's obviously not going to be in charge anymore that evening. He's going to take the rest of the evening off, which makes sense. Now it's funny to think that I was probably the age the kid is here when I first saw this movie. When you're a kid, I don't think you really think of yourself as being a kid. So it's like even as a 12-year-old watching this movie, I still saw this kid as a kid and not necessarily, you know, the age I was when I first saw this movie. But I think I can remember like being like, "Oh man, I wish, I never had babysitters ever in my life. My parents just left me alone." But I remember watching this at 12-year-old and just feeling like, "God, I wish I could have a babysitter like this." And the character of Laurie Strode, as a 12-year-old, I just liked. I don't think I necessarily thought Jamie Lee Curtis was attractive at that age, at the age of 12. Now, obviously, looking at her, as an older man myself and looking at her here, I mean, obviously, she's more attractive. But as a 12-year-old, I don't think I necessarily thought of her as being particularly attractive in this movie. So there's Lindsay just sitting in front of the TV being terrified. Michael Myers lurking. Dog is barking at Michael outside, I guess. Dog's about to go and get strangled. You know, I this movie was obviously said to be a big success and I think the most successful independent movie of the time for quite a while. And I think a lot of its success can be attributed to just the fact that it takes place that it takes place in like suburbia. And even though it's kind of like said, look at that classic shot of Michael peeping in the window there. It's, as a 12-year-old, I just love that shot. I think a lot of people, young, kids, teenagers, young 20 somethings that went to watch this movie identified with the characters because it's just, even though it took place in, it was supposed to have taken place in Illinois and small town or whatever. I mean, it could be anywhere in the suburbs and, North America, and just the girls talking on the phone and stuff. And, you know, I think it was very relatable. And I think that's probably part of the reason of its success, because I think kids like going to movies to see themselves on the screen, and not, I don't know if they like to see themselves die, but they like seeing themselves on screen. So that's probably part of the reason why this movie did so well. I don't know if this woman's actually got some chest stuff going on as an actress herself. I would assume she never showed she never was topless. I don't know why, for the life of me, I can't think of this actress's name, but, she's got some pretty how can I say this without sounding like just a pig, but she's got some stuff going on up there on the chest area, or if this was the movie Pieces, her pectorals are pretty ample or whatever. And it's kind of a bummy how we do see a little Nancy Loomis. Isn't it something how things just come to your brain? But we do see a little side boob when she takes off her shirt and has got her back facing to us. But Nancy Loomis had some sizable pectorals, and there's a slow motion shot of a dog just kind of letting his legs drop. Isn't it something that we're seeing the original thing from another world on the screen here? And John Carpenter, not many years after this movie, would go on to remake the thing from another world and simply call it The Thing. But I think he says in the commentary that the movies he puts on the screen are, like 3/4 inch tape versions he has himself. I like the dialogue here. What about the whatever after the whatever? And what about the whatever after that? What about this? That dialogue was cool. There's no such thing. Richie said he was coming after me tonight. You believe everything Richie tells you? No. This is the part I liked as a 12-year-old, Laurie Strode going above and beyond here to make him just to make him feel better, you know? This kid's kind of creeped out talking about the boogeyman, but Laurie Strode not, being older and not, believing in this stuff, just tries to obviously logically talk it out and make him feel better. She's like in this scene right here, as she grabs his hand and they go off to have popcorn or carve a pumpkin or whatever. She's just like the ideal babysitter right there. Like, making him feel better and at his beck and call for whatever within reason, I should say, he wants. And okay, well, I'm not going to bitch about this too much, but here's another tell that this is not the Midwest. I don't know if there's any, I'm not going to say there aren't any at all, but chances are in the Midwest you're not going to find a laundry room in a separate little building in the backyard, because in the winter when it's 0 degrees or -10 Fahrenheit, you're not going to want to take your laundry basket out there. And well, yeah, you wouldn't be able to unless you heated your laundry room that was out in the little building out in your backyard. The washer would just freeze. All the water in the washer would freeze. So this is another sign of this movie clearly not being taking place in the Midwest because the laundry room is in a little building in the backyard. But I mean, if John Carpenter and company are just used to residing in California, I can't remember where John Carpenter is from. I think it's I can't remember. Possibly somewhere in the more of the southern hemisphere or southern North America or whatever. But anyway, these are little obviously details that you just notice being a true Midwesterner. And once again, why not just have it take place in a small town in California? But they just wanted to do the small Midwestern town thing, whatever. Once again, these are things that you don't even consider, or even if you did as a kid or teenager, it just wouldn't matter to you because um, you're just watching this movie for the scares and the TNA and Michael Myers and the music and whatever. So in just like, I don't know, at this point when I'm doing this, just like a couple weeks or a week and a half, we're gonna see whatever here, Miss Richards reprise her role over 40 years later as Lindsay Wallace. Look at the outfit she's in, and she's like from the Village of the Damned or something with that dress and the high socks and pigtails or whatever you call those things. There's a Tide commercial there. You locked yourself in. I know. This is anyone else dislike the character of Annie? I mean, look at this. I mean, this is another reason. Not to mention the yellow socks on Annie. Come on, it's the 70s where yellow was the color and green, like light green and yellow, furniture, carpet, wallpaper, socks. 70s was the decade they saved all the shitty colors to decorate with, and they just had a surplus of shitty colors in the 70s. So they figured this is the decade we're going to use all the shitty colors for clothes and decorating our homes with. Jolly Time popcorn plug. She got stuck in the window. She'll be right here. Here's another Panaglide shot where this is really cool, by the way. For once, I'm going to not bitch about this. So she's going to take the phone out, walk over here. I seen you stuck in a bunch of other positions. Michael in the back there panning away, and they just have enough time for him to look at that. You can see him like I think you can see just the edge of his arm exit the frame there, but he barely has enough time to walk away when got a shirt on. God, it's all you think about. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but it might be John Carpenter on the other side of this phone playing her boyfriend. You never see him in the movie. I think it possibly is John Carpenter doing the voice there. Don't I can't confirm that or not, or can't confirm that. And I'm pretty sure that Tommy Wallace also does the voices on the TV, like, and now the next morsel of horrifying madness or whatever. And he'll do the same thing in Halloween 2 as well. And of course, be the some kind of voice of something in Halloween 3, not to mention the director as well. Talk about that at a later time or whatever. But that shot looks really cool as another Panaglide shot as Annie's gonna basically leave Lindsay Wallace in the hands of Laurie Strode so she can pick up her boyfriend and fuck around. Michael's kind of, for whatever reason, just kind of lurking around these two babysitter homes that are right across the street from each other. And of course, we've got the situation with the door in the front of this house, which the doorknob is on the interior, it's on this side, and on the exterior, it's on the other side, which is really funny. In the 35 anniversary commentary with Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter, it's funny hearing her trying to point things out to him, and I don't know, it's kind of a uneasy commentary. It's kind of funny. It's actually the reason why pretty much bought the 35th anniversary Blu-rays to just hear the at the time, the new commentary with actually John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis sitting down together discussing the movie. It was well worth the purchase price. This is once again, this is in true quote unquote friendship fashion. This is just such a bitch move of Annie here to just like pawn Lindsay off on Laurie so she can just fuck around with her boyfriend. But it's realistic, you know. Friends, quote unquote friends can be like this, and poor Laurie just, you know, takes the takes it. So here we go, and I love how John Carpenter just lets this it wouldn't really fly today, unfortunately, because audiences now are so accustomed to just having shit happen instantly, but we've got Annie here. We know she's gonna die, but, you know, Carpenter just lets this go on and on and on and on, and I just love that. It's timeless, and a lot of people, you know, younger people might say, "Oh, it's just boring," you know, and it's like, "Fuck you. It's not boring, it's fucking awesome." I'm assuming this song she's whistling and singing, she's just making up. "Oh, Paul, I give you all," or whatever. What I can't remember what she says, what she's saying right here, like, "Oh, Paul, I can no longer stall. Oh, Paul, oh, Paul, I can no longer stall." So anyway, she realizes she didn't have to use the key, wipes er, Near. So it's almost God, it's almost an hour into the movie, and this is the first on-screen Michael kill, I think, if I'm not mistaken. This is a kind of a cool kill. Near. I don't think you can. I don't know if cars now. I don't think you can honk the horn without the car running. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but near. It's kind of cool how we like, just kind of choking her for a bit before the knife comes out and just quickly swipes across the throat, and this is kind of cool. And I like how that struggling took place through the well, it cuts back and forth between like the inside and through the windshield, but the windshield's like fogged up with Michael's condensation or whatever. That's really cool how you see her through the condensated whatchamacallit windshield. So here's John Carpenter's potentially three-quarter inch tape of Forbidden Planet was actually partially widescreen. It's partially letterbox for late 70s. That's pretty impressive. The movie's wider than that, but it's a goofy kind of half-ass partial widescreen, what they called letterbox back in the 80s and 90s. Lindsay, Lindsay. It sounds like he's saying Limsey, like Limsey. This part is awesome, and the way they made it work with the actual soundtrack of Forbidden Planet. This is so cool because Michael chose to wait to do this on Halloween when you can get away with carrying a body from around back, around front into the front door without anyone questioning it if someone happens to see it. And that's one of the things that I think they didn't really embellish enough on in this movie, and they didn't even really do this is like the only scene in this movie, well, with the exception of the very end where Laurie Strode is trying to get help from neighbors, and they just like turn off the lights and shut the blinds on her. But this is the only time that I can remember in the franchise where it takes advantage of that idea of Halloween being the perfect, out of all 365 days of the year, if you're going to go on a mass murder spree, the best day to do it is Halloween, because if people are screaming or running for their lives from you, or if you kill someone and have to carry them from one place to another, you can do it without fear of being seen, because if anyone sees you, they're just going to assume it's goofing around for Halloween. And that scene right there of him just nonchalantly taking the body around from the back to the into the front door is a perfect example of that, and the way they made the scene a little scarier by using the Forbidden Planet music was really cool. They had to do a cut and kinda, uh, alter the Forbidden Planet music, but they still use Forbidden Planet music. "Hey, hey, Lonnie, get your ass away from there." Look at I'm proud, and Sheriff Brackett. It's so funny how Loomis just spends the whole night behind the bushes here. I love the dialogue here, between Brackett and Loomis. Oh, okay, this scene makes me reminds me of another problem that this movie has that I'll talk about when it happens. S So this is the second of Michael or not Michael, Loomis goes into his spiel, sitting in a room, staring at the wall, looking past the wall, looking at this night, inhumanly patient. I'm not doing that to sync up. I'm doing it out of I don't know where is in the story on the screen, but death has come to your little town, Sheriff. You can either ignore it or you can help me to stop it. All lined up in right in rows up and down the streets. You're telling me they're lined up for a slaughterhouse. They could be. All right, I'll stay here with you tonight. Just a chance that you're right. And if you are right, damn you for letting him go. Should make a Sheriff Brackett figure. So Loomis doing his best. He's just gonna keep standing there. Obviously, another Panaglide shot as the van. God, I miss vans. I never had a van or anything, but when you watch these late '70s, early '80s horror movies, and they always got these vans which you can do so much fun stuff with in the back and stuff. It's too bad I mean, you can buy minivans and stuff, but it's too bad they stopped making, like, vans like this 'cause I'd almost be tempted to get one if they still made one like this, where it was kinda, you go in back and you have a twin mattress and all this and that and kinda stuff. So once again, the teenagers just basically all they got on their mind is sex and beer and pot. So once again, I do think that that's one of the biggest reasons this movie was so successful. Kids, young people like watching themselves on screen, and they have fun with seeing themselves do what they do on screen. It's so funny how and it's actually realistic. I mean, this Annie character, which I forgot the actress's name again. Isn't that something? Is basically supposed to be babysitting Lindsay, and she goes off. Well, she's dead now, but she was gonna go off to pawns off Lindsay on Laurie, and was gonna go get Paul and just have sex and fuck around on. Well, they're just gonna have like you take the couch, we get the bed upstairs, and just have sex. But I mean, it's how young people are. Well, not only young people, all people, but especially young people, just kind of just just living for themselves and just out for a good time and just want to just have sex and drink. And I love that kid's fake smile right there. And just into self-indulgent activity. So they carved a pumpkin. Now they're gonna sit down for some more TV, or are they? And it's so funny how the kids lean back with her, and then the phone's gonna ring here, and then she'll get up, and both kids just sit up, and I can only assume they were both told to do that when she got up, but if not, that'd be really funny if they weren't told to sit up, and they just both did that automatically. So obviously at this time, PJ Souls had already been in a pretty successful horror movie by the name of Carrie, so she was pretty, well known already at this time, and I'd say besides, Donald Pleasance, in this movie, PJ Souls is probably the most recognizable probably of anyone else in this movie at the time. I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis was a nobody. I'm assuming all these boyfriends of, you know, Linda's boyfriend was a nobody, I would imagine. Nancy Loomis, I don't think was necessarily much of anybody. I mean, she'd been in Assault on Precinct 13. Now here, looking at this scene, I can remember John Carpenter's '94 commentary, him being uncomfortable with sex scenes, and it's just like that's just so interesting to me. Like, John Carpenter, this big horror movie guy, is uncomfortable with sex scenes. It's like, come on, man. That's really cool. That freaking pumpkin, that jack o' lantern there on the nightstand really just adds to the scene. And I want to say possibly on the back of the VHS media VHS, there's a shot of them in bed with the pumpkin back there or something like that. But the pumpkin on the nightstand really adds to the scene. Like if that wasn't there, I'd have nothing to look at. Once again, sex goes so quick in this movie. And it's kind of a bummer how, like, I don't know, out of the 3 girls, PJ Souls probably has the least amount of stuff on her chest, and she's the one we kinda half-ass see, and I mean, we don't really see. It's kind of like there it is, kind of. It's not hidden, but it's kind of hidden at the same time. Look at that. It's the cliche. Let's light up and have a smoke after sex. Look at that guy's big glasses. When I was 12, I always kind of thought this guy was a geek because of the big glasses, but I think that's just how glasses were then. It's just so, Jamie Lee Curtis mentions this in the '94 commentary. It's just so nasty, this idea of, you know, high school kids screwing in this is presumably like the parents' bed or something. You leave this babysitter with your daughter and she pawns him off on the next door babysitter across the street, and friends come over and fuck in your bed. It's just like, drink your beer. Well, I think he dies before he has a chance to drink this particular beer, but it's just so creepy. I mean, just so nasty. I would never trust any teenager or something in my place. Of course, I luckily don't have anyone to babysit. That was a purposeful choice I made. Linda, you asshole. I love this bit how he's like, "All right, come on out." Like, okay, well, he gets what he gets what he asked for. He said, "Come on out." Look at how cool that mask looks like. It's like it's like not it's intentionally not lit. Like, just oh man, when that knife comes up, that's so cool. It's a shame to, when you compare this movie to the 2018 quote unquote sequel, the brilliant subtlety of this movie compared to the over the top, CG gore of Michael stabbing that woman through the back of the neck or head or face or whatever it is, and the CG knife coming out the other end, and just being so gratuitously violent, and just the simplistic nature of the violence in this movie is absolutely perfect. Oh, I'm seeing a third thumbs up. Thank you very much for stopping by to support the stream. I am assuming you'll be back after the fact to listen to the whole thing. Now, this is where the movie for me, it really just is getting good. Like that kill was really cool. And this whole notion of Michael cutting, grabbing a sheet, cutting holes in the sheet, putting it over his head, and the finishing touch, there's a little bit of kind of toplessness, but kind of not. It's enough to see that she is topless, but not enough to pause it and do anything with it when you're 12. But just the genius of the glasses as the finishing touch. And you can another thing I loved about the movie when I was 12, the first 2 movies, but the first one in particular is the breathing sound of Michael in the mask is something that I think even in the second movie wasn't quite as good as the breathing in the first movie, and it's it's something that was never, in my opinion, necessarily well, there you can see her chest. Something that was not necessarily ever achieved again, and if it was the second one, but I don't after that, I think the breathing I think it was kinda there, but never achieved to the extent of the breathing was just so good. The Michael in mask breathing was so good in the first film, but that whole bit with the dialogue with the guy with Michael just standing there with the sheet on and the glasses is just brilliant. And of course, I think Deborah Hill mentions this as a Dial M for Murder moment, which I hadn't seen that at the time when I first saw Halloween. So it's an hour and like, I don't know, 8 minutes into the movie at this point, and look at this shot as the mask comes up into the frame of the Captain Kirk mask with the sideburns removed and spray painted, or well, I don't know if it's spray painted, painted white, and they had to cut out the eye holes a little bigger. I remember when I went to this place to try to get a Michael Myers mask in the early '90s, and the proprietor of the place was like, "Yeah, did you know there was a Captain Kirk mask that they made into the Michael Myers mask?" And I was like, "No, No, it isn't." Like I just didn't want to believe it. I just wanted to think it was just a Michael Myers mask they got off the shelf. As much sense as like that makes any sense at all. But there's a shot in Star Trek 6 where where Captain Kirk and McCoy are being on trial, and there's a high shot of William Shatner from high above, and he's flooded with the light of the trial or whatever, and the lips, his face looks just like the Michael Myers mask. So a lot of people say they don't see William Shatner in the Michael Myers mask, and it's just like I totally see Shatner mostly in the lips of the Michael Myers mask, and it's so funny seeing Shatner in Star Trek movies and seeing Michael Myers on his face. Here's the thing right now that was one of those details that I was going to bitch about. So basically, if I'm understanding correctly, the hospital station wagon was parked down the street, across the street. This makes no sense to me. This part makes no sense to me. Possibly in the comments someone can explain this. This might be another huge incompetent writing plot point of this movie. Why why is he seeing the hospital station wagon just he could see it from standing outside the Myers house. So is the Myers house right down the street from where these babysitting things are happening? Because didn't Michael Myers went and parked the station wagon right in between the two babysitting houses? So has Loomis been right down the road this whole night, and is the Myers house right down the street from these two babysitting houses? Okay, so she's going out that side of the door. We don't see her, but see on that side of the door, yeah. Anyway, that I think that's my final big huge gripe with this movie is so you're telling me he was standing there the whole night and the car was there the whole night and he just happened to just see the car at that moment. And once again, the Myers house is just like a block or two away from the babysitting houses. But once again here, this is a one of these milking shots which you could never get away with these days, and I'd love if someone, did one of these just to punish, the ADHD, kids or 20 somethings that would go to the Halloween Kills, for example, and just do a scene like this and just punish the shit out of them. And, where she's, it's the classic cliche of Laurie Strode, of everyone being dead in this house, and Laurie Strode approaching the house of death, and everyone in the theater saying, "Don't go in there." But at this point, and I always thought it was kind of goofy how, and once again, as a 12-year-old, I kind of envied Tommy Doyle in this scene where he's like in bed with Lindsay Wallace. It was just like, oh man, I really want to be babysat if that is what could end up. I mean, being a kid, you know what I'm saying. Being a kid and put in bed with another girl kid of the same age. But I always thought that was goofy that they were both in the same bed because, yeah, it's not like, I was some innocent at that age. Like I didn't know anything about the opposite sex. But I guess this was the 70s. And it's, you think about details like that of her putting, Lindsay Wallace in the bed with the son that she was hired to babysit, and it's just like, is that what the parents of Tommy Doyle would have wanted? The girl next door, Lindsay Wallace, put in bed with him? I'm not so sure. It's so funny these high school kids, Lori and her girlfriends, what they're of course Linda wasn't babysitting that night, but the questionable things they were doing when they were supposed to be, you know, old enough to be responsible and stuff like that. So this is lit so wonderfully well by Dean Cundy, who would go on to, light the next, I don't know how many of the next movies John Carpenter. I know he did. Yeah, he probably did a great handful of the John Carpenter's next movies. I know he did Fog and probably Escape from New York, and I don't know if he did The Thing or not, possibly. I don't know when he stopped using Dean Cundy, but Dean Cundy would, I can't remember, I don't think he did Assault on Precinct 13. Was this their first collaboration? I don't know. But he'd go on to do Halloween, not only John Carpenter's movie, but, movies of the next several years with Halloween 2 and 3 and Jurassic Park and Back to the Future trilogy, I think. But once again, the music here, this is the down, 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 down. But I uh I was crazy about this movie when I was 12, and then I saw Halloween 2 at some point, and then I liked Halloween 2 even more. And I'm kind of embarrassed to say that, but the whole reason I liked Halloween 2 more is because like there was more Michael on screen kind of stuff. Because for me at the age of 12 and 13 and stuff, the horror movies were all about like the for me the star of the horror movies were the quote unquote killers, Leatherface, Freddy, Michael Myers, and stuff. So it was kind of like, the more on-screen time with the characters, the better, because it's like, oh, you could look at his outfit, you could look at the mask, you could whatever. And that's why as a 12-year-old I preferred 2 to 1. Of course, now I definitely prefer 1 to 2. That's just a no-brainer. As a matter of fact, Halloween 2, we're seeing Annie, the character of Annie, dead in bed with the Judith Meyers gravestone there, beyond classic. That just once again shows Michael's strength. Jesus Christ, I can't remember what I was talking about. This is kind of goofy, like spook house bullshit, where all these bodies just flop down and this door just opens to reveal the dead corpse. That's kind of goofy. Of course, so many movies like Friday the 13th would do the old drop down body thing as well. And how cool is this bit where in the dark doorway the white mask slowly becomes visible. Oh my god. And then oh, I think I was talking about oh, okay, there's a really cool shot. Dun dun dun. Here's a Beyond classic. Dun shot right there, top of the stairs. Dun 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 dun. And look at how cool it is when the light hits his mask on the way down there. That's Beyond classic. What I think I was saying something about me as a 12-year-old liking the second film more than the first. Oh, I think I know what I was saying. Halloween 2, like 10 years later, because I just worshipped Halloween 2 like when I was 12, and like 10 years later, like maybe it was like 9 years later, the DVD came out and I, got Halloween 2, and first time I'd been able to see it in widescreen and stuff. And I was just like, 9, 10 years later, I was like, oh my God, it was completely different. I was like, what did I see in this movie? Not to say I don't like Halloween 2 at all anymore, but Halloween 2 might be the biggest shift being a movie fan for me that's ever happened with a movie where as a 12-year-old I just worshipped Halloween 2, and then as a 21, 22-year old I looked at it and I was just like, what the fuck did I see? But and it was like the biggest flip I think for me in a movie going from a kid to an adult, and how I saw it, because basically as a 12-year-old I just loved it for all of just the Michael stuff that they showed. And as a 21, 22-year-old I was looking at it going, so the main character Laurie Strode is unconscious the whole thing and laying in bed. This is what I was talking about, where she tries to go get help and the person just turns off the light and shuts the drapes. That's awesome. And I don't think in any of the Halloween sequels they ever said anything like that, or did anything like that again. And we can only hope that they do something like that in the Halloween Kills, where it's kind of like Michael takes advantage of the fact that it's Halloween. But what it looks like in the trailers with Halloween Kills, like the whole movie's, everyone knows that Michael's out there, so they can't really do that with Halloween Kills because they know the threat is out there in the second one. But it's something that I don't think they did in any of the Halloween sequels, and I already talked about it, so I'll try not to. Anyway, she's knocking on that side of the door on the outside. See, it's that side of the door, like the right side of the door, and then he goes to open the left side. So, I mean, we can only assume that there's two different houses for the interior and the exterior. But that's a huge fuck up too. Just seeing that curtain thing blowing in the wind, and he came in through the window there, and it's just like creepy, and it's so dark. She's gonna grab the knitting needle. And can you imagine if, like, in the 2018 Halloween or Halloween Kills, there's a female character that brings a knitting bag with yarn and knitting needles? I mean, talk about a bygone era. High school student, but maybe that was even out of character for a high school student in '78. Maybe that was their way of making Laurie just seem like the biggest nerd virgin, you know? Look at how big that knife is compared to Jamie Lee Curtis. That's a big knife. That's not a knife. This is a knife. And Jamie Lee Curtis hates this, just this throwing the knife away in this far shot where it's so far away you can't see the disgust in her face. And I kind of agree with her partly, but at the same time, I don't care. It's kind of like that Melanie Kinnaman having a problem with her sweater appearing and disappearing and reappearing in Friday the 13th, Part 5. So now Loomis is just wandering around like, is it just me or did Michael Park write across the street from, right in between the babysitting houses, unless he moved the car during the night and we didn't see it. I guess you have to just write it off like that, but probably more inconsistencies. I do love how that toilet paper is on that tree blowing in the wind. It really adds to the theme of the evening. I would imagine they did that for the movie, but they were really lucky. I don't imagine they would have had wind machines. They were really lucky there was enough wind to blow that toilet paper right there, because I really think it's tremendously atmospheric, and that's one of the things about the night scenes in this movie, that at least you can't see how green the leaves are on the trees. Now, this is probably for me one of the coolest shots of Michael in the whole movie. When he's coming up, it's so creepy. You can see him in the background out of focus, and the knife shimmers right here is like, dun, dun, dun. Okay, right there. Look at that shot of Michael. That's just a cool ass shot of Michael. That's the shot I used for the thumbnail of this commentary. Cool ass shot of Michael. And when they cut out the eye holes in that Captain Kirk mask, they really made the thing look creepy as shit. The mask. Look at how he's like a robot here as he enters the room. He's just like a robot. Dun dun dun. Makes you wonder how much Nick Castle, I think, was purported to have done some Michael stuff in Halloween Kills, and I wonder how much he did, or if he did more, than one shot, or whatever. But it would have been really cool if he could have done everything in the 2018 and Halloween Kills and stuff like that. But I guess I can understand why he didn't. But how cool is it that John Carpenter is doing the music for him? But anyway, if you're claustrophobic, this scene might kind of freak you out. I'm not claustrophobic. Interestingly enough, in 1998, my mom and I went to Las Vegas, and I hated Vegas. But one thing I found out when I went to Vegas is, it's a desert, and I found out that I might have had the opposite. I don't know if there's probably descriptions for everything, but I found out that I might have had open space claustrophobia. I'm used to like Minnesota and just trees everywhere and not being able to see very far. And I was just like, it was like open area claustrophobia, where it was just like, oh my God, I can see for miles. Like when we were out in the desert. And it's just like, oh, it's almost like this is too open. I've got reverse claustrophobia. This is too much open space here. Because where I am, it's Minnesota, and you've got, if it's the suburbs or whatever, you've got anywhere really, you've got trees, on the side of the road, or both sides of the road, there's trees. So it's just like you're always just you can never really see very far. So being in all that open desert was just, oh my God. But anyway, this is it's the second time, Michael was trying to get at her in the closet, and she poked him in the whatever with the clothes hanger, and then got the knife and stabbed him, and then once again threw the knife away. Let that be a lesson to you. If you find yourself in this situation on Halloween night or any other night, just keep the knife. Don't keep throwing it away. It might come in handy. So it's funny how in Halloween 2, the sequel to this movie from 1981, that bit where she's telling the kids to go get help or whatever, they use an alternate take. It's the same dialogue, but it's an alternate take, and I wonder why they used an alternate take. Dun 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 dun. Dun. They also kind of extend these kids' screams a little more. The screams end like right around here in this movie, and in Halloween 2, they keep going like dun dun dun. It's so creepy how he stands up out of focus in the background. Of course, I was gonna say you couldn't see that in the pan and scan tape, but I can't remember how they did it in the pan and scan tape. Dun dun. I wouldn't see this in widescreen until, well, the Laserdisc Criterion Laserdisc came out in '94. It was a huge revelation for me being a Halloween fan, and just an amazing release. I've done a showcasing of it on this channel I wanna say it was last year. So mask comes off, there's some creepy makeup, like, on his eyelid there or something. I think it was a mistake to show his face. They don't when they do the sequel, the recap from the sequel, they cut out the reveal of the face, and I agree with that. I didn't do many things in this movie as, like, dialogue or ding, click sound effects to sync you up. But I'm not too sure. No one ever really leaves any feedback on these commentaries. I'm not too sure people necessarily even watch the movie back with the commentaries if they even listen to, these get clicks, but that doesn't mean people listen to the whole thing. Feel free to, if you're here at the end, feel free to let me know that you listened to the whole thing. I'd really be interested in commentary feedback. Like, are people listening to all of these, or are they just listening to the first couple minutes and clicking away? Like, if no one's listening to these, I probably shouldn't waste my time doing them. I'm gonna probably make a separate video asking for commentary feedback. Nee, 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 nee. So, Michael was shot out the house and he fell from the second story bedroom onto the ground. We saw his corpse down there. Mike or Loomis goes to look at him and he's just gone. Just the fall ground with the leaves on it. How cool would it be if this was the last, the first and only Halloween movie? In a perfect world, that's what it would be. It would be the first and only Halloween movie. And how cool is I always thought it was cool as a 12-year-old, like revisiting these locations. I don't know why they did this, but it's really cool. And you can hear Michael Myers breathing getting like louder, like his presence is everywhere. I think that's just brilliant the way they close this movie out, and then to end with the Myers house and the creepy shadows of the trees on against the house moving. Really, really, really great end to the movie as Halloween appears and starts to go up. But yeah, my plan is to basically I gave it a lot of thought over the last several weeks, and I think I'm basically just gonna do commentaries this year for Halloween 1, 2, and 3, and I possibly if the world makes it to next October, possibly do, you know, I don't know. I'm not gonna plan a year ahead, but we'll just leave it at that. We'll say the plan is to just do commentary for the first 3 this year and leave it at that. The quote unquote John Carpenter Halloween movies, because even if he didn't direct 2 and 3, he produced them and had a, part to play with music and stuff like that. So the John Carpenter Halloween, the first 3 Halloweens. But yeah, I mean, it's really fun. This is my first time watching Halloween this year, and of course I'll go back and watch it with sound at some point before the end of the month. But it's so funny, even looking at the movie without sound. It's, these just, watching these movies that you first saw as an 11, 12-year old, and movies that you held in such high regard as a kid and stuff. It's, once again, just seeing them again as an adult. Every time you look at them for the rest of your life, well, I guess just speaking for myself, once again, I'm just seeing it through those young eyes. And, I'm seeing other things as well. Obviously, there's so many things I bitched about, but you're still seeing so many things, through those eyes, and it just brings back so many feelings of things you were feeling and thinking at the time you first saw it and stuff. That's one of the many things I love about movies. If seen a movie as a kid and stuff, how it can be a time machine when you watch a movie to just transport you back to that time. But my voice is getting a little raspy as the movie is now over. That was really cool, and I'm actually looking forward to hopefully. Well, yeah, looking forward to doing the commentary for part 2 as well. I can talk about my history with Halloween 2, and how much I just was crazy in love with the movie when I was 12, and then a mere, 9, 10 years later, I was like, what the hell did I see in it? So it'll probably be another commentary with a lot of bitching, kind of like, every time they show Laurie just unconscious in bed, I'll be like, so this is the main character from the first movie, and in this one she's unconscious and doesn't do anything. And so it'll probably be a lot of bitching in Halloween too, but also some fond memories as well. So I guess that pretty much does it for this particular commentary. Thank you very much for listening. And as always, we will catch you on the next one.